Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention? We'd like to call this meeting of the County Commissioners of Kent County to order on May the 23rd, 2023. And if we could start off by everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could remain standing for just a moment, we'll have a moment of silence for, we have Memorial Day coming up here Monday. It's going to be a lot of people on the roads, and let's have a moment of silence for their safety. And another thing, I just found out this morning that there was an off-duty police officer was killed in a car accident yesterday, I think. So we'll keep his family in their prayers. Thank you very much. Time will be allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. And now we have 3 public notices, and our county attorney, Tom, you want to read them aloud for us to read so that we're in the record?
Thank you, Mr. President. The first is Kent County Public Notice, proposed fiscal year 2024 county budget. Notice is hereby given that the County Commissioners of Kent County will hold a public hearing for the proposed FY 2024 budget on June 6, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room of the R. Clayton Mitchell Jr. Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The hearing is open to the public, and the public is encouraged to attend. The county offers 3 options for the public to provide input in the public hearing process. 1, in person. 2, email to kentcounty@kentgov.org. 3, U.S. mail to 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, 21620. Please contact the Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4 if you need further instructions on how to participate in the public hearing process. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County through Sandra M. Blackiston, Clerk, and this was published in the Kent County News on May 18, 2023. Our next notice is a Kent County, Maryland notice of a proposed real property tax increase. The Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland proposes to increase real property taxes. 1, for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2023, the estimated real property assessable base will increase by 2.37% from, get this right, $3,054,226,645 to $3,126,635,350. If Kent County, Maryland maintains the current tax rate of $1.012 per $100 of assessment, real property tax revenues will increase by 2.37%, resulting in $732,776 of new real property tax revenues. 3, in order to fully offset the effects of increasing assessments, the real property tax rate should be reduced to $0.9886, the constant yield tax rate. 4, the county is considering not reducing its real property tax rate enough to fully offset increasing assessments. The county proposes to adopt a real property tax rate of $1.022 per $100 of assessment. This tax rate is 3.38% higher than the constant yield tax rate and will generate $1,044,296 in additional property tax revenues. public hearing on the proposed real property tax rate increase will be held at 6 p.m. on June 6, 2023 at 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The hearing is open to the public and public testimony is encouraged. Persons with questions regarding this hearing may call 410-778-7478 for further information.
Tom, before we go to the last one, I'd just like to say that that's a notice that we have to, by law, put in the paper. And if anybody in the audience understands it, I'd like to talk to you later, and God bless you, because that's the most complicated thing we've to try to figure out there is. But go ahead.
And I think there is legislation that's been proposed to
Yes.
try to make that more understandable.
Well, they got a long ways to go.
But the gist of it is, because assessments have gone up, if you don't raise the tax rate, if you keep the tax rate what it is, it will provide additional tax revenue, so that is considered to be a tax increase. Because even though you may not be raising your tax rate, because the assessments go up, the property owners are actually paying more because of the higher assessment. So it's considered a tax increase, and that's why that notice by state law is required to be read, and it's required to be read in that form.
Right.
So,
It does need to be noted that the property tax rate is going up by 1 penny in addition to that. However, just so that that doesn't get lost in the language.
but even if it did not, it would still be considered to be a tax increase. And I think
Even though the rate wouldn't.
we're all familiar with Kerwin and the challenges that we have this year that are in many respects are unprecedented. The next and final notice is Code Home Rule Bill number 20-2023. This is legislation introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland, an act to amend Chapter 222 zoning of the public local laws of Kent County, Maryland, also known as the Kent County Land Use Ordinance, in order to update Article 5, District Regulations, Section 11, Commercial District, Section 11.5, Density, Area, Height, Width, and Yard Requirements, by adding a new provision to regulate the height of industrial structures in general, and by adding a new provision to regulate the permitted heights of industrial structures in the 301 corridor. To update Article 5, District Regulations, Section 14, Employment Center District, Section 14.5, Density, Height, Width, Bulk, and Fence Requirements, by adding a new provision to regulate the permitted height of industrial structures in the 301 corridor. To update Article 5, District Regulations, Section 15, Industrial District, Section 15.5, Density, Height, Width, and Fence Requirements, by adding a new provision to regulate the permitted height of industrial structures in the 301 corridor, and to update Article 11, Definitions, Section 2 Definitions, by adding a new definition for the Route 301 corridor, inserted as item number 278.25. A hearing will be held on June 13th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr. Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting-agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit Maryland Relay at mdrelay.org no later than noon on Friday, June 9th, 2023. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., and on the county website at kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft-legislation. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, through Sandra M. Blackiston, Clerk, and it will be published in the Kent County News on May 25th, 2023, and again on June 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Tom. And we have three consent items. We have regular session minutes of May the 16th, 2023. We have liquor minutes of May the 16th, 2023. And we have public hearing minutes of May the 16th, 2023. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Now, Ms. Chris Hemstetter. We have the pleasure of having Ms. Chris Hemstetter. She's principal of the Kent County High School, and she's here. We have a certificate, actually, of appreciation. No.
Recognition. It's a
Certificate of recognition, but she's going to tell us a little bit about it.
Okay.
Nice to have you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always it's a great day to be a Trojan. It's always a good day when you are invited to the commissioners' meeting to be recognized. I just want to say that Kent County High School has a strong commitment by our community, including our students and our teachers, to environmental literacy. We are always looking for ways that we can enhance our programs, you know, our agricultural programs and our recycling programs. Our students definitely have a voice, and I think our students are very strong and they understand that their actions do affect the community. So we are excited to be recognized for that second year. This is not the first time that we have been recognized as a green school, but we were able to get that certification. So we're excited about that, and we are excited for what we will do to enhance the program as we move forward and sustain environmental literacy throughout our school, our community. So I appreciate the opportunity to come forward and to speak on the students and the school behalf. So thank you.
We have a certificate, and we'll
Perfect.
have Mr. John Price, Commissioner Price, read it aloud.
Okay.
First, I want to start by telling you publicly, thank you for everything that you do for our students at Kent County High School. I've been around for a long time and have seen a lot of different principals and different forms of leadership go through the school from time to time. And everything that I've been hearing about your efforts and your leadership there is certainly commendable. So keep up the good work. We're happy
Thank
to
you.
have you there.
Okay.
Very
Thank you.
nice.
So having said that, there's a certificate of recognition. This is to certify that Kent County High School is hereby recognized for being named a Maryland Green School in 2023 for their outstanding environmental education programs and significant contributions from students and staff in this endeavor. As a recognized Maryland Green School, Kent County High School is a highly visible model for other Kent County schools and the community. Students and staff have demonstrated how the environment can be integrated into the instructional program, how environmental best management practices can be employed in the building and on the school grounds, and how local environmental issues can be explored through the partnerships in the community. We, the County Commissioners of Kent County, are pleased to congratulate Kent County High School with its notable achievement of being recognized as one of the outstanding Maryland Green Schools in our county and state. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald E. Tithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, John F. Price, Member. And we'd like to present you with this, and congratulations on
Thank
everything that you
If
did.
you'd like to have a picture.
I would.
Okay.
Yes. Let me go. Thank you.
Thank you again. And our next appointment with Julie Hanzo, Department of Social Services, here with us for a certificate of appreciation for Robin Hawthorne. Welcome.
Thank
here to recognize Miss Robin Hawthorne, who has been a state employee at Kent County Department of Social Services for 23 years. She is a supervisor of the Family Investment Program and very valued member of our team. She's retiring to become a business owner in Kent County and will be opening a shop in Rock Hall. And we wish her well. We're going to miss her terribly.
Very well, very nice. And I have a certificate of appreciation that's been prepared for us, and it reads as follows. It says, "This is to certify that Robin Hawthorne is hereby recognized for 23 years of service as a family investment specialist supervisor in the Department of Human Services, Kent County Department of Social Services. Such commitment and loyalty are admired and well respected by all those who have had the honor of working with her. We, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, thank you for your continued devotion and dedication and public service to Kent County and the community. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member, dated May the 23rd, 2023. So it's our privilege on behalf of the citizens of Kent County to present you with this certificate, and we'll have a photo if you'd like.
Do you want to plug your business real quick? I'd love to know what you're doing.
It's called High Tide Local Gift Shop. I'm going to carry souvenirs and local handmade items. Joyce Teat, she's an artist. I'm going to sell postcards of hers. I am selling local honey that is made in Rock Hall, and I will be selling local jewelry from a local jewelry maker. Dolly's Taffy. Bespoke chocolate.
Very good.
And I'm in the Little Villages right on Main Street.
Very good.
Bring her team up to have pictures with her. Bring her team up to get the picture.
Any of her guests, anybody? All well.
Can you get us? Thank you.
And now we have, it's our pleasure to have with us today Mr. Calvin Ball, President, and Michael Sanderson, Executive Director of Maryland Association of Counties. And welcome, gentlemen. This is our annual Mako visit, and it's always a pleasure to have you all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone else who's in the audience. Such an honor to be here. I'm serving as this year's President of the Maryland Association of Counties. In my other role, I spent about 12 and a half years on the County Council in Howard County, and now about 5 years as County Executive, and so it's quite an honor to be here. Mako has been working very hard on your behalf. It's been a year of transition, and we have a new governor, new state comptroller, new attorney general, working with the leadership, and Mako has advocated on about 757 pieces of legislation this past 90-day session. And so we wanted to come by and tell you a little bit about what we've been working on, and then, of course, always listen to your perspective and feedback so that we can continue to serve you the best way that we can. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sanderson, Executive Director.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you this morning. We shared a packet of information mostly focused on the legislative session. As you know, the Maryland Association of Counties, we represent county governments and all the services that you all deliver on the front lines to Marylanders across the state. Part of that role is advocating on behalf of those public services before the General Assembly. And particularly when the visit lands in springtime, you're in the midst of your budget process and so forth, it's kind of natural to look backward a little bit at the work of the state legislature this year, first year of a term with all this change afoot. One of the things that we found, fortunately, is our long-term strategy of working with everybody has paid off in a year where there was change afoot all over the place. But all the committee chairs and all the leadership in the legislature, the new governor and administration leaders and all have a respect for MACo and a respect for county governments and what you all deliver. We have to be partners. The packet we've shared, I don't want to go through it in a whole lot of detail, but certainly if there's things that we don't get into, we'd be happy to talk about them further. Let me skip through just a few things from this past session that are noteworthy. A lot of times, I'm here in the springtime talking to counties about quirky or bad news that happened in the state's fiscal process through the budget or through the reconciliation process. This year wasn't that kind of year. It wasn't a shifting costs kind of environment or nickel and dime, cut pennies here and pennies there. Sometimes we are the losers in that respect. This wasn't that kind of environment. Although the fiscal temperament in Annapolis changed gears really rapidly in early March. When they wrote down their own revenues, there was a tempo change in Annapolis from, oh, we closed out last year with a surplus and things seem fine and we can afford to do stuff. It quickly turned into, let's be thinking short term because this revenue write-down might mean that some of what had been going on fiscally for the last couple of years was maybe artificially boosted by federal government participation. It's kind of been a sneaky suspicion for a while. Early March wrote down state revenues and probably has tempered local revenues as well. I'll mention a couple other things through this past legislative session really briefly, but if you want to get into the 10-minute version on any of these, we certainly can. We needed some changes to the state's Forest Conservation Act. That's a responsibility that when you grow and cut down trees, there's an obligation to put trees back up or to try and keep our canopy and overall tree cover 1-to-1 where we can. There was basically a legal decision a couple of years ago that a lot of local governments had been using banking as a strategy as part of your forest conservation plan. So saying we want to preserve existing forests and count that toward our overall goals of maintaining forest cover. We've been doing that for years. The Attorney General found blank spaces in the state law saying we probably don't have the authority to do that, so we needed that in the law. That was a hard-fought compromise with some environmental groups that might have wanted to make those laws tougher and even more difficult to comply with. So we found a pretty good middle ground there. I'm happy about that. We would have lost local flexibility without a good bill this year. I'll make quick mention of something that came up in your earlier conversation, that law regarding the constant yield notification to residents, that even in a year where you're not changing a tax rate, you're duty-bound almost all the time to tell citizens in the newspaper and in this public hearing that you're raising taxes on them. Effective next year, that law is going to change and be an awful lot smarter. You'll have to make that notification in the event that you're changing the tax rate. So at the moment you're proposing a 1 cent increase, the state law will say you should make sure the residents know about that actively and give them an opportunity to comment on that in particular. But in the really common circumstance where you're keeping the rate the same and there's some growth in the tax base, you don't have to tell all the citizens, we're raising your taxes, and folks show up at a public hearing and then find out, oh, the rate's staying the same, it's just that my house has been assessed for a little more, I already knew that. So I think we're going to cut down on the confusion in that process and bring a little more reasonableness to that law. 45 years in the making, I never thought I would see the day. It's the small things sometimes.
And if I just may, I did 13 budgets as a council member, and that was always the most confusing hearing that we had every year. So you all handled it masterfully, and hopefully next year it'll be a lot more cleaner and clear for our communities.
Very good.
I'll mention very briefly, I think you all know that in the 2022 session, the General Assembly passed legislation to expand paid leave and family and medical leave for employees and made that an obligation of employers of almost any significant size. The whole idea was to have a window of time for employers that already give relatively generous leave to basically check the box and opt out of that state program if you're already doing something that's comparable to what the state was doing. We needed a follow-up cleanup bill this year to give everybody a reasonable window of time to make that work. We got that done. The employer community all worked together. But I will say, counties, municipal governments, and school systems were all on the same sheet of music, and that helped a great deal because we're all in that spot. I think most counties are inclined to opt out of this state program and instead just offer leave directly that we want to do. But how you do that, we need a window of time to say, okay, if we need to change this benefit or that to satisfy those state requirements, let's give us a window to be able to do that. So we got a good adjustment there. We knew that implementing adult use legal cannabis was on the agenda for the state legislature. This was a mixed bag. We come out of it with a modest amount of local revenue. In all candor, a disappointing amount. I thought there was an opportunity for some more support for services being provided locally. It'll be a relative pittance. You'll have the ability to govern land use and so forth for the facilities to a point. You will be able to, in the workplace, be able to continue to have workplace standards. If you're worried about sheriffs having a drug testing policy or things along those lines, you're going to be able to continue to have workplace policies that promote safety and so forth that you're concerned about. So mixed bag on that front. It's possible some of those issues will be live in the next legislative session. There's already grumblings of fix-up stuff. I'll make a couple more quick mentions. A big issue that we tried to tackle and get the ball rolling on is we know lots of our jurisdictions are having difficulty recruiting, retaining firefighters, whether it's on the volunteer or on the career side or a mix of the two. Almost everybody's having difficulty filling roles there, getting through the training, getting people who are engaged. We know that's a difficulty. A lot of stakeholders there. So this year's bill was to bring together a commission with all the stakeholders, come out with some recommendations by the end of this calendar year, and try and get a good bill passed in the next legislative session. The legislature loves nothing more than consensus among stakeholders brought to them, here it is with a bow on it. And that's what we would hope to have by the end of the year. But I'd be shocked if your jurisdictions are not among those having difficulty filling spots in the volunteer and so forth. Body cameras, we got a bill passed to engage, get the state to do some main contracts. So when the time comes that your deputies need to have body cameras, you'll have some contracts to be able to ride onto rather than reinvent the wheel in every jurisdiction. A smart idea. In the back of this packet, this could be a 15-minute presentation. I'll make it 15 seconds. If you are contemplating making contributions towards retiree health care, you probably have an unfunded liability sitting on your books on that front. It's always been trouble for a small county to say, well, we have to set up a trust, we have to do all this legal maneuvering and so forth to make an investment like this. MACO's a service organization too, and one of our services is we have an OPEB investment, other post-employment benefits other than pensions. We have an investment trust ready to go, a turnkey sort of thing. So whether it's $50,000 or for a bigger county, $5 million, you can set up an account in the OPEB trust. You don't have to cover all that overhead yourself. Just share it with all the littles going in together. Get grade A advisors at a cut rate. So pretty good service on your behalf that MACO's trying to deliver in addition to policy work. So I didn't get into school funding, I didn't get into police oversight and some of the other challenges that I'm sure are on your plate and so forth. I know they're important issues, they just didn't really flame up during this legislative session, but maybe the best use of your time is, I'll stop here talking about last session, and we'd be delighted to take your questions on whatever's on your mind.
Well, I don't think we would be the only one that is struggling with the blueprint for the Kerwin bill. And, you know, I've always found that is just as small as Kent County is, we're able to do what we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. The thing that really is being troublesome to us is what they call the wealth formula. I mean, we are considered to be probably the third, I think, richest county in Maryland, according to this wealth formula, with 89% of our land in agriculture, of which we don't even control the tax rate on that, and I'm not insinuating that we should do anything with it, but we don't control that. We're just different. we're not the difference between Montgomery County or Prince George's or Baltimore City or Howard County or some of the, and then Kent County, we could sit here all day and talk about the differences. It's just, we got a very, very small school population, but that wealth formula is gonna kill Kent County. I mean, and we're gonna talk to we're gonna make that known to our legislators and our governor, and hopefully gets, even in the Kerwin bill, the Department of Legislative Services mentions Kent County about 4 times that we're going to be in trouble. Today, we spend $3,300 more per pupil than our neighboring county of Queen Anne's County, who could buy and sell us anytime they wanted to. We're now spending, we're third or second or third from the top as far as per pupil funding. But even though we're spending $3,300 more per pupil than Queen Anne's County, throughout Kerwin, the estimates are we have to increase that by 65%. And that's our neighboring county, who is spending $3,300 less per pupil today, they only got to increase by 32%. It just seems out of whack to us, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about it. This is probably, in my 25 years of sitting here, this is the biggest challenge we've ever had. And unless we're somehow treated different or some different arrangements, because nobody wants to touch that wealth formula, because I think the first thing they'll tell you is we're not talking about that. Well, that's what the problem is with us. We usually pay our share. We try to do what's right, but this is really causing us some problems. So we're going to be talking to anybody that'll listen to us in the coming year to try to get something straight. I mean, now in the state they have a funding mechanism for community colleges. They're colleges that have a lot of pupils, medium population of pupils, and then the small population of pupils. Maybe something like, we're hoping maybe something like that might work to where, because we are different. And we actually like being different, but in this case, it's really, really troublesome. So that's our big to-do. And we're good with most everything else, and we'll work hard to be a player, but this is causing us some real issues. So for whatever that's worth, we wanted to make sure and the governor's going to be coming to visit us soon, and we'll be telling him the same story. So we'll see where it goes. But it's one that we've thought long and hard, and we don't see any way in the world where we could handle it the way it's set up now. And we always read in the papers. I don't think we're the only county that's complaining about the blueprint, by no means, but we are probably hit in a percentage basis. We're hit worse than anybody, and so maybe because it is so lopsided, maybe we'll get somebody's attention. But thank you, and that's all I wanted to say to you. And but it's great that you all are here, and we look forward to it. And Mr. Ball, I'm sure you're going to do a fantastic job in the coming year.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words, and you're very astute that you're not the only county that's having challenges with the blueprint. And I think all of us want to make sure that our schools have the support that they need for our students to be successful. We want to do it in a sustainable and fiscally responsible way. And we all, commissioners and everyone on the local level, we have numerous issues that we have to balance when it comes to funding. And we at MACo have made it known to the leadership, the Speaker and the Senate President, as well as the Governor, about some of these issues and challenges, particularly right here in Kent with the challenges of the funding. And Michael and I were just talking about it on the way in here about the importance of continuing to advocate on your behalf. And so, you said you weren't sure. You'll tell everybody who will listen. We'll listen. And we're going to keep listening, we're going to keep talking, and I'm glad the governor's coming. I have personally had conversation with the governor about Blueprint. He recognizes that while there's so much good in the tenets, that now we're looking at the implementation, and there does need to be some revisions on the implementation.
If it's done in a fair way, Kent County will be there to do its share and do its part. There's some things that have to be, that well formula, I'm preaching to the choir with you two, I know, but, you know, if we went to build a school, we'd get 50% of funding from the state, and we'd put up 50%, and another county could get 75% or more from the state. And that's the one thing about the money that goes to education. It's not exactly how much you're paying per pupil and how much your contribution is, but where does it come from?
That's
and
right.
if it's in some counties, the lion's share is paid by the state. In Kent County, the lion's share is paid by our people. And that's the big difference. And you all understand how that works. But we'd be remiss if we didn't bring this issue up, and we're going to bring it up to anybody that'll listen. And we appreciate you listening. So
Thank you, Mr.
thank you
Commissioner.
again.
If I could add one thing on school funding that I think is relevant to the statewide politics of this issue, you're absolutely not alone. Montgomery County, our largest jurisdiction and a jurisdiction who's high on that wealth scale, their county executive's proposing a 10-cent property tax increase to fund education this year. That's probably not where the level's going to land, but that gets attention. Baltimore City's proposed budget says they need to take $70 million of cash out of reserves just to make this year's budget work. And they are similarly situated to you all. I mean, the demographics and economics of Baltimore City and Kent County feel like they're super different, but they are very similarly situated with respect to the Blueprint. They're being asked this year and next year and next year and next year to keep taking steps. Now, a one-year raid of a big chunk of a reserve fund, the kind of thing that keeps the bond houses comfortable with your being a highly rated, risk for investors. A one-year way to make year 3 of a 10-year plan patch over is one thing, but that can't be your 10-year plan. So if Baltimore City and Prince George's County and Montgomery County and a number of large jurisdictions are already in fiscal distress in year 3 of a 10-year rollout, that moves the needle for the media in the Washington metro area, the Baltimore metro area, the main conversation that's happening. In all candor, it can't just be Kent County. That won't change the conversation in Annapolis. But misery loves company. It strengthens the argument that, but I think that's it's the best news for a small jurisdiction like yours is you're not alone in this. And a lot of folks who are committed to the outcomes of the Blueprint and the successes we want from our schools are saying the same thing. Like, we are turning our pockets inside out. We've dug into all the couch cushions just to make year 3 work. How do we do the next 7? So I'd like to say that that's some momentum for some evaluation, whether it's in the wealth formula or whether it's in, Annapolis is good at creating bumpers here and there. Here's the formula, but up to here and below there and that sort of thing. So who knows where it goes from here, but you've got some allies in this effort, and that's helpful, I think.
That's great. Yeah, we're hoping that makes a difference.
Right.
too.
We are too.
I would just like to echo some of the things that Commissioner Fitzhugh said and some of the things that you all have already said. This is a statewide problem. The pillars in the Blueprint, no one can disagree with those. They're all great initiatives to educational opportunities for our students. But the problem is there's just not a funding source. And, we struggled this year with our budget drastically and we're still gonna work on it some more today, but, to balance the budget. And frankly, next year, if it doesn't improve, I think there's gonna be a lot of counties that are gonna say, oh, we can't do this. We got, I don't like to say no, especially to the opportunities of educating our children. but the money just isn't there to pay for it. And I'm hoping, very, very hopeful, that there's some type of relief or some type of conversation over the summer with the powers to be to negotiate something to make this a smoother implementation and a more doable implementation. I mean, the idea is great, but the fact is our taxpayers and our counties just can't pay for it. It's just too astronomical. And I understand you all know this, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse, but whatever MACO can do, we certainly would appreciate it. If we can help in any way, we're there.
Thank you. We're on it.
And thank you for what you do.
Well, I can't really, I mean, that's, to me, is the most important, or probably the most fiscally important issue that we're facing, obviously, like the rest of the state, like we all said. And I would agree with everything that my colleagues have said. But I'd take it a step further, and I just don't know, that we can do. And the only way we can do it next year is to raise taxes by 4 or 5 more cents, just so the public knows that. We don't have the money. The only way we can do it is raise taxes again. And I'm going to tell you, I do not want to vote for that. None of us up here wanted to raise taxes this 1 cent this year. We did not. I certainly didn't. I never thought in a million years I'd be elected, and 4 months down the road, let's raise taxes. Geez, oh whiz, no way. But here we are, and that's our only option. So we appreciate everything you do, but you got to do more.
We appreciate that, and we will.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, Commissioner.
Come back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob Rager, Community Relations Manager, Maryland Department of Transportation, here to talk to us today about a proposed weight restriction on Maryland 299 Bridge over Jacobs Creek.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Sir. And before you start, let me just say that this was just brought to our attention, it was brought to my attention probably 2 or 3 days ago, or 4 days ago or something. And I didn't know anything about it, and my colleague. But what I wanted to say is we contacted our county administrator and said, look, we got to learn something about this. She obviously reached out to someone in your department, and I want to thank you for the quick response and for you all to be here to explain it to us and see if we can come up with some kind of decisions or make solutions.
Yeah.
But really, what my reason for saying it, I want to thank you for your quick response and being here.
Oh, we appreciate you having us. And for the record, my name is Bob Rager. I am the District 2 State Highway Administration Community Relations Manager. We've got on my left here Maurice Agostino, who is in charge of our Office of Structures. He's coming down from Baltimore, and so has Rod Thornton with our Office of Structures, and of course, District Engineer Ken Fender over here on the right. So what I'll do is I'll give you the quick where we are and how we got here. And then I'll step out of the way and turn it over to Maurice. I think he has a presentation here that he's going to run through on the bridge itself. But just real quick, what we have here is a bridge. It's over Jacobs Creek. It's Maryland Route 299. So it's between Massey and Sassafras. It's about 1.25 miles south of Maryland Route 290 in that area. It's a very low volume road. The bridge was built in 1938. It's actually a timber stringer bridge. It's a very, very unusual bridge for us in that we don't have a whole lot of timber bridges, on our system anymore. The bridge has served us all very, very well for 85 years, and it's getting near the end of its useful service life. We do have a replacement bridge in process for this. Our goal here now, the next couple of years, is to keep this bridge viable for everybody who uses it until we get to that new bridge. So what we've looked at in the last couple of years, we've noticed some accelerated wear and tear on the bridge, and we're trying to address that now while we have the new bridge in the planning process. So one of the things we're looking at doing for that is possibly restricting the weight across the bridge. And I should step back and tell you, first of all, one of the questions that always comes up when we talk about bridges is this bridge safe? And the answer is absolutely yes. When we do bridge inspections, we do testing, we do analyses. If we come across anything that indicates that a bridge might not be safe for travel, we would shut that bridge down immediately, and that's not the case here. So what we're talking about more or less is preserving this bridge for a couple of more years. But we have noticed some accelerated wear and tear on the bridge. We're trying to address that. This is a very, very unique situation we've come to find out because of everything else that's going on around this bridge. And getting out and doing a little community work, we found out that a lot of the county roads in the area are already restricted. Goltz Road, for example, to the east is already weight restricted. Goltz Caldwell Road is already weight restricted. Maryland 299 north of Maryland 290 is already restricted. And we learned that Kent Sand and Gravel, their operation, when the trucks come out of the quarry there, they are not allowed to turn right and go through Massey, and that's per their permit with the county. So when we step back and look at this, we go, oh my gosh, we've got all these restrictions already in place, and really everybody who comes through this area in terms of commercial hauling and agricultural hauling relies on this bridge, and we recognize that. So where we are right now is we do need to do something. It is our responsibility to make sure that bridge is preserved until we get a new one in place. We were looking at a weight restriction. We're still looking at a possible weight restriction, but knowing the economic impact that this bridge sort of carries with it and the impact on local agriculture, we realize that we owe it to everybody out here to kind of take a step back for a second and see if there's something else we can do besides just posting the weight restriction. And real quick before I turn it over to Maurice, just some of the options in general. When we talk about the load impact on a bridge, I mean, weight's the first thing that comes to mind. But also you're looking at the types of vehicles that use this bridge, the lengths of the trailers, the axle spacing, the axle loading, and the speeds across this bridge. And what we're hoping to do now is go back with our engineers, back with our consultants, go back to the data we've collected on this bridge and see if there's a way to come up with something a little better than just a weight restriction on the bridge. We don't know for now, right now, that we can do that, but again, we owe it to the citizens out here and the people who rely on this bridge for their livelihood to look at every option that we can. So, any questions in general as to how we got here?
No, you've done a good job of explaining the situation, and we're certainly glad that you're taking a second look at it. Now, I know one gentleman in the audience, Mr. Davis, who's brought some of these concerns to our attention. He's a farmer in the area. And maybe we'll let you all finish, and if he has some other questions or something.
And I'll tell you on the kudos, we've gotten the Jones Family Dairy Farm out there. Sean and Tammy Jones have been very, very generous with their time in educating us as to how vital that bridge is for them and other farmers, and also helping us understand exactly the types of vehicles and loads that they take across that bridge.
I'm sure you've learned more than the three of us could probably teach you then.
We've learned a lot, and honestly, it's been a good experience for all of us because it's not every day that we go out and post a bridge restriction. I don't think we've done this at State Highway in probably over 20 years. It's been a long time. So again, that in itself is unusual. The fact that it's a timber structure is unusual, and the fact that all these other routes around here are restricted is very, very unusual. And we want to make sure we keep the communication open with everybody out there as we go through this process.
When you pointed out the one issue with the sand and gravel pit business up there, that they're not allowed to go the one direction.
Yes.
Because of a county permit, is that because there's a weight restriction if they went that way?
That was a county decision, so as part of the process with what we're looking at with the bridge.
Was it just to keep it from truck traffic out of Massey? I guess
that's my understanding, but again, that was a county decision. The state didn't weigh in on that. That's actually posted at the sand and gravel operation as trucks are leaving that driveway, Alexander Road. There's a sign there that tells them you cannot make a right turn on the 299 South. And I believe that was put in by the county as part of the operating permit for the quarry. So we of course, I mean, it would be nice if we could get those trucks to go south through there, but I actually did reach out to Kent County Planning and Zoning, and Carla Gerber was just wonderful in responding and going back and forth. And she actually checked with the county attorney because we asked, is there a way to waive that restriction right now? You know, if we need to get that truck traffic out of there and have it head south. And she said, according to the county attorney, not at this time. So every restriction that's in place now is going to stand as far as we know. It's a long answer to a short question, I know.
But if it was lifted, would that help with not only the sand and gravels problem, would it help with the farming community?
I don't know, because there's also some geometric issues down at the crossroads in Massey at the intersection of 313 and 330 and 299 right there. If those trucks, for example, coming out of the Wenger grain mill were to go that way, could they make a right turn onto 313 west to get them out to 301? I don't know, because there's a utility pole in that corner.
I was just speaking for the three of us, I think. If, before we see some businesses up there have to close down or a real inconvenience, don't rule that out.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, we are all doing what we can to avoid that, of course, and this will probably make more sense. We'll go ahead and let Maurice run through his presentation. He can tell you more about the bridge and what we've done out there and what we're looking at in the surrounding area to try and make this work for everybody.
One real quick question. Was this just a random inspection, or was there a complaint, or was there?
We do routine bridge inspections.
Routine.
And, you know, we watch conditions, and again, I mean, this bridge is 85 years old. It's actually held up quite well, and honestly, putting the weight on this bridge is not necessarily the problem. It actually holds up well to a static load test on the bridge, so structurally it's in pretty good shape. It's the impact that weight is having with those loads hitting that bridge at the speeds they're hitting it at. So before I get too far down into the weeds on it, let me turn it over to the bridge engineer, the expert on this, and I'll step out of the way.
Well, thank you very much.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Maurice Agostino. I'm the director for the Office of Structures. With me today, Rod, you want to?
Rod Thornton, the Deputy Director, Office of Structures.
Okay. So Bob did a great job giving an overview. I think we're going to make him an honorary member of the Bridge Department. He did a great job with that, as he always does. He's helped us on many a time on projects, providing community outreach. I'm going to go through a real quick presentation. Most of it Bob covered, but I can maybe add a few things as we go through it. So certainly, there's photos of the bridge up on the screen there. Bridge was built in late 30s. It's a mix of timber and concrete construction. The timber is not a traditional, say, beams. It is almost it's timber nailed together, almost form a solid timber slab that carries the concrete roadway above it. Bridge is 61 feet long, 30 feet wide, and has a 26-foot roadway, 2 lanes. Bridge was last inspected in November of 2021. That's our normal. We're required by federal law to inspect our bridges a minimum of every 2 years, and that's a thorough, hands-on inspections. All our inspectors get within arm's reach of the bridge element to make sure they can, visually see it and perform note their observations. They can only observe what they can see, so they can't dive. They can't make determinations on what's under the concrete. So our inspectors flagged some deterioration in that. In portions of that timber deck. That is, once they flag that deterioration, then our engineers go out and make an assessment of the structure to see if there's any remedial repair actions or analysis that needs to be further undertaken for the structure. Overall, the bridge is rated in fair condition, and that's again part of the federal National Bridge Inventory standards. A bridge is rated at either poor, fair, or good condition based on its 3 major elements. That's the deck, what you ride over, the superstructure, which are the beams that carry the deck, and then the substructure, which are the pilings and piers and abutments that the beams sit upon. So if any one of those elements are rated a 4 or less, then the bridge is considered in poor condition. If any one of those elements are rated either a 5 or a 6, then the bridge is considered in fair condition. And if all the elements are rated a 7 or above, then the bridge is considered to be in good condition. This bridge overall is in fair condition because the timber that we're concerned with is a very localized area and not the predominant condition for the entire structure. Just from a standpoint of a weight restriction, Bob is correct. We haven't posted a bridge in the state of Maryland since 1996. We try to do everything possible to avoid posting a structure. We certainly are always concerned with, whether a posting would affect emergency services, school buses, or the economics of an area, right? So if there are businesses, farms, mills, we certainly are concerned that our restriction would cause hardship to those surrounding businesses. Bridges are weight posted if they are unable to carry the maximum weight of a legally loaded vehicle. That's 80,000 pounds for a tractor-trailer combination. It is dependent on the axle configuration of the vehicle. There's multiple rating vehicles. Some are fine, some are not. It's all how that load is distributed over the bridge. And then 70,000 pounds for what we term our Type 4 dump, which is the dump truck. So based on the condition of the timber superstructure during the last inspection, we performed a load evaluation of the bridge load carrying capacity. And we actually performed a physical load test. And Rod, maybe you can give a little bit of a kind of explanation of that load testing procedure.
Okay, it's a proof load test because of the unique kind of construction of the structure where it's timber. Concrete and steel, you can put strain gauges on and also take into account deflections. In this proof load test, basically they load up vehicles and they used dump trucks to do that with stone to actually generate certain loads that we would actually run the trucks across the bridge, get a certain deflection from that, and they can correlate that deflection to how much load and how much distress that the bridge is under. All the test vehicles that were put onto the bridge did demonstrate that the bridge is working in an elastic way, which means it returned to its original position. An inelastic would be that something either yielded or failed. In the sense of timber, it would be fail. It would be something like a timber member cracking. As Mo was mentioning, these are a series of 200 2x8 timbers that have been nailed together. So they act as a timber support. And that's what we call the superstructure that's supporting the deck. And as Mo pointed out, the localized area that we identified during the inspection and also during the testing is an area that's adjacent to one of the piers that there's a significant deflection and a correlation. There's a ratio that they generate.
Deflection is movement up and down.
Up and down, right. Bridges like steel bridges, concrete bridges, they deflect and they come back up. They rebound to their original position. It's just like anything would deflect under a loading condition. But these, the analysis that they came through with determined that, as we're saying, a lower value for the capacity of legal loads that would be allowed on the bridge. A unique thing, though, is what you were pointing out about these trucks coming out of the quarry. They're of the T4 configuration, which is a dump truck with 3 axles in the back. That's one of the ones that was flagged as being having an issue with crossing the bridge at full loading. And that's why we're talking about reducing the loading. But the larger vehicles, some of the grains that, Bob, you sent me the picture of, where it's the big trucks that you see on the interstates, the 5 axles.
Tractor trailer with multiple axles.
Multiple axles. Those don't seem to have an issue with, the bridge doesn't seem to have an issue with carrying or distributing the load with those type vehicles. So those would actually, and from the analysis, be in a condition that we feel more comfortable with in allowing a full vehicle load. But that's still under, evaluation. What we would want to do is, as we're talking about, taking some measures to actually address some of the condition out there, and as a result, do some more testing and verify that what we did actually would cause a positive ability of the bridge to carry those loads.
All right, so just from a standpoint, so what are the next steps? What are the next steps? I think that's obviously what everybody wants to hear. So first thing, it's an 80-year-old bridge. It's timber superstructure. We are moving forward with a project to replace the bridge. But that does take time. Okay, so design, permitting, potential of utility relocations. We're looking at least a 2 to 3 year design period to design the project and then move it into construction. So we're looking 4 to 5 years before a new bridge is in service, realistically. So what can we do in the interim to alleviate the concerns that have been raised, certainly from the businesses in the area? Bob mentioned a discussion of the impact, and that is and Rod and I actually went out there this morning to kind of observe, and I think in a half hour, probably about 20 trucks went over it, of dump trucks and different tankers and grain carrying, is what can we do to help alleviate and potentially keep the bridge full service while the replacement bridge is developed. This impact loading is when when the truck goes over that bridge, it hits, there's an area, particularly the area where we're concerned with, it hits the bridge, there's a bump, which exacerbates the impact loading, and causes the bridge to deflect further. And one of the things we talked about is, okay, a speed reduction, that would help. And then some improvement to the ride of the bridge. There's a lip there that we can probably mill out. In addition, the timber superstructure, normally if this was like a steel beam bridge, we can go out there and, augment the steel beam with additional plating and strengthen it. This superstructure is more of a challenge to try to come up with some sort of reinforcement or strengthening, but we have some ideas based on looking at it that potentially we can strengthen that localized area to stiffen it up. And we're going to explore that and see if we can avoid the posting in general or try to minimize the number of vehicles that would have to be posted. So kind of that's where we're at.
Just a question
Yeah.
for you, though. And I understand the tractor and trailers are not as big a problem as the dump truck because the load is more isolated in
Yeah.
a smaller area. How about the farming operations? Is that are what they do on a daily basis, is that a concern?
Like the
Or is it
combi-
basic combines to any? Now, it sounds like from listening to you that the main issue you're concerned about is what dump trucks coming
Yes.
out of gravel, sand and gravel.
Yes,
Is that
Yes, and then there's certain combination of tractor trailers that they're the design vehicles where they have one axle instead of, not typical, these days, but, there is a potential for those. They're termed from the design code, they're called our HS-20 loading. That's the traditional design vehicle for a bridge that has like a single axle tractor trailer, not as common. Again, it's the configuration of the wheels that, and how they're placed on the bridge. So if we had some kind of idea of what the typical farm or combine equipment, we can certainly analyze it to make sure that it's not a concern.
I do think Bob has reached out to some of the farming community out there and got an idea of what some of the weights of the vehicles are, the classifications as well. So we are looking at that as well, just to make sure that what they're bringing across that bridge, just kind of getting a good data supply, good information to make sure we're taking everything into consideration.
Well, that brings me back to that first question I had about with that sand and gravel company. If they were, I know they're not allowed to go towards Massey, but I mean, things, and when you're in a situation where safety is a factor and the fact that you're trying to help the businesses, sometimes those agreements going to have to, they're secondary, in my opinion, to somebody getting hurt or business having to close down for any length of time. And I was just curious, if that agreement was not in place for temporarily while we're fixing this thing, would that help the situation?
Certainly would help, yeah, I mean.
And then maybe a speed reduction as well?
Right.
I don't think anybody would have all they want to do is be able to go by there. I'm sure some type of a speed reduction, I can't imagine would cause too much problem, but, we all have to work with one another to
The question about going through Massey, maybe Mr. Mackey might be able to shed some light.
Yeah, I
Is
don't
this
know,
a
I don't know
special
what
exception
that was
condition?
even done for. Was it?
Board of
It
Appeals.
could have been as simple as it was an agreement made with Massey because he didn't want all the truck traffic. Well, and that's fine, and I understand that. But push comes to shove, when safety is at hand, or someone's business is about ready to shut down, if you had to put up with truck traffic for a short period of time while it was being addressed, that seems to be something we could all bite the bullet and put up with for a while.
Yeah, I think it may have been a condition that was put on by the Board of Appeals when the special exception was granted. So it might be something that could go back to the Board of Appeals for consideration to temporarily lift that restriction.
And I know Carla has reached out to the sand and gravel folks to let them know that.
No, we haven't reached out to the sand and gravel. We've reached out to Chris Drummond, and that was his advice, is yes, in order to alter those conditions on the special exception, it would have to come back to the Board of Appeals for an amendment of those conditions. And that is the reasoning, is that there was a lot of concerns from the residents of Massey about excessive truck traffic driving through their community to get out to 301, and that if there was a way to keep traffic from going through, small residential town, then that's how it should be directed, but.
And this could be something that's just temporary until the new bridge is put in.
We can also,
Because I'm sure if you're talking about even 5 years away of replacing this bridge, that's going to be shut down then for a long period of time.
Right,
So-
well, the type of bridge, we've done that type of bridge over summer closures in the past, over a 10-week closure period, but, again, we would time that, we've had situations where we've timed those differently based on planning season or what in particular, affects the area most. We usually try to do it in the summer to avoid impacting schools, but schools are probably not the biggest issue in that area.
Well, it sounds like to me everybody's working to try, you're becoming more aware of the problems that this is creating for the people in the area. When will you be, if you are gonna reduce the speed limit, or how long do we have?
Well,
are you
we've
gonna
already.
take some time now to review all the proposals and what we can do, what we can't do? We're not gonna go down there tomorrow and find a weight limit.
Right. So we've already discussed the speed reduction internally with our Office of Traffic and Safety. I think we're all kind of on board with that.
they agreed to looking at
Right.
reducing the speed limit. So we're looking at a bunch of different options with this to try to keep this a bare minimum affecting the community. But, there's also some things we could do with the intersection in Massey. If we were able to do away or just kind of put a postponement on that amendment, we could look at reconfiguring the intersection in town to kind of allow for a little bit more room. It's a tight area. That whole section down there, to try to maneuver a tractor trail is a little challenging.
Yeah, and
We're
we'd,
looking at a whole bunch of different options to see what we can do.
we'd like to look at the strengthening option that Rod and I kind of sketched out this morning at the bridge to see, where that puts us, and maybe that alleviates the issue altogether.
So is it safe to say for us that you're gonna go back and do what you do best, is to take care, look at these situations, look at alternative ways of handling it, and and let us know before anything changes there?
Yes,
Is
we
that-
can do that.
would-
Yes, so, and we can,
Plan on being around for another year, so I don't want to do something kind of get everybody a little upset.
So we'll kick the can down the road for at least a year.
I like the way you think.
I got 3.5. So, just so you guys know, I like option, the last one you said about trying to shore the existing bridge up so that hopefully there's the minimal impact on these guys that are here. it is critical. You guys, everybody here just sat through what we talked about with Kerwin and the budget. And, you know, the last thing we want to do is negatively impact any other business, for God's sakes, in this county. And there are several up there that contribute greatly to the economy. So, I mean, to say it's a request is putting it lightly. I mean, we've got to do something to make sure that these guys and gals can continue to do what they do up there. So, I guess that's all I got.
Yeah, I think any form of stabilization that you can do would be the first option that I think we would prefer, if in fact that's doable. Just find a way to stabilize it so that it's business as normal until you decide when and if you're going to do something else with it.
I mean,
Because I think that intersection up in Massey is going to be a nightmare to try to, and I'm not good at what you all do, but I can't imagine turning a big 18-wheel tractor trailer at that intersection right towards Real. That's going to be a challenge.
And we're certainly not advocating to push all this traffic through Massey, because we understand a small town like, or small area like that's pretty disruptive. And we were only maybe thinking this was a short-term solution while we were fixing the problems, and then go back the way we were. It certainly will be for as short a period of time as we can make it, but
you know, waiting 2 or 3 years and using the Massey intersection might not be the most feasible thing to do, and especially if you lived in Massey. I mean,
Right.
We've already had conversations with some of the folks here. Quite a few calls are coming in this short time we've been talking about this. We're very much in tune with what's going on in the
we,
we just want to make this the easiest fix for everybody out there. It's going to be challenging.
and that certainly comes across clearly that you're trying to do what you can to minimize any disruptions of any kind up there, and we very much appreciate that. But so I guess unless there's anything else, we thank you, but just keep in touch with us, let us know what you find out moving forward. And we'll
wondering, when you talk about speed reduction, are you talking about steel plates or something to?
Just rumble
Signage?
strips and direct
Kinda-
indicators.
Yeah, lower the speed limit signing out there.
Yeah.
And we said, we've already had discussions with our Office of Traffic Safety, and they're very much agreeable to doing that. So just within the area of the bridge, we would just slow it down a little bit. We have pavement markings that we can put out there, rumble strips is what we're referring to. Just things to kind of make people aware that when they're coming off the bridge, they need to slow down a little bit. So at that point, though, we are relying on the individuals that come out of there to abide by that. I mean, that's something that we don't have the ability to monitor and kind of, issue tickets or anything to that level. But we'll do our part. Bob does a great job of reaching out to the locals in the area, the businesses and all, trying to make them aware of what's out there. Let them understand this is going to be something that's going to help out tremendously. If we can just slow people down. If we go that route, which I think is definitely one of the options we're looking at.
Well, there are several businessmen and women here today that are in that area that would probably hire some private security if that's what was needed to make this thing work.
or speed bump or something that'll make them slow down, which we all hate them things, but this is a pretty unique situation. We just want it to work for everybody, but we certainly appreciate you all coming in. I can't say enough how impressed we were that we placed a call and you're here.
Yep,
So
thank you.
thank you very much. And we know you're going to do the right thing. Just keep in touch with us and let us know before somebody calls and says, hey, they posted a no weight or lower weight limit on this bridge, and we want to know ahead of time before any decisions are made. Now, we appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to see if those guys have any questions?
Mr.
Sean,
Olin, I
Sean, or
apologize.
Mr.
Mr. Olin, any of you
Yeah,
want?
anybody want to ask any questions right now or anything?
No, I appreciate the direction they're going and the time you all committed to this thing. I think we can take care of any questions out of me.
Okay.
Thank you, Harry.
We got another one.
Certainly appreciate that.
For what it's worth, I can remember being at the hearing when Jimmy Alexander, that was a self-imposed, that no right turn, that was self-imposed.
Okay.
In Jimmy Alexander's application, he was just getting ready to start that gravel pit. There was a lot of tension, so the rain was moving the asphalt plant there. And he, you know, he could see the opposition of his trucks joining the trucks going to that plant. And that was, it wasn't something that anybody asked for. Jimmy offered.
Uh-huh. That's good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Got off easy, not talking about the curling bills.
What'd he say?
Talk about the curl.
He said we could take it off easy, not having to talk about it.
Yeah. Judy Olinger, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're the Executive Director of Chesapeake Neighbors,
I am.
and you're going to tell us about your mission summary.
That's exactly, and it won't be Kerwin, it won't be travel. We're switching gears completely to
Thank
housing.
you.
Do you have good news? Do you have some good news?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I think it's gonna be positive.
Well, thank you for not, we've talked, we're talked out about Kerwin, so
Okay,
we're
no
glad to
more
talk
Kerwin.
about something else.
I'm not asking for anything.
Okay.
Just want to tell you, Chesapeake Neighbors, we're a private nonprofit that develops affordable housing throughout Maryland. And I just wanted to let you know a little bit about who we are and what we do, and I do appreciate you giving me a few minutes to tell you about us. So we develop affordable housing. We've been around for 15 years. We're primarily in Anne Arundel County and on the Eastern Shore. And we know the need for housing is continuing to grow, especially rental housing, which is our focus. We know that in Kent County, rents have gone up by 10% over the past 2 years, and salaries have stayed fairly stagnant, and that about 30% of the population in Kent County are renters. What is kind of one of the greater challenges is not just the affordability, but just the housing stock. There just is not rental housing available for people. So we have looked in the area. We recently have worked in collaboration with Kent Attainable Housing, who does an incredible job with home ownership. And they said, we do home ownership, you guys do rental housing, somehow we can work together. They had a property right here on High Street, 423 High Street, that is currently abandoned. It's uninhabitable, and we purchased that from them. And we are now working with the county to figure out what we can do with it, whether we can demo or whether we have to keep it up. And so we're trying to figure out, but we will be creating housing units that will be available. And I think we'll have some parking that goes along with that, which I know is a big deal downtown here. So I just wanted to introduce us, tell you a little bit about us, and then as opportunities or challenges come up that you think we can partner with you on, we would love the opportunity. I've given you both, all three of you, brochures and my business card to tell you a little bit more about us. And that's really it. So not a long drawn out, no issues, just want to be able to tell you a little bit about us.
Well, it was a short presentation, but it's a short presentation about a very serious problem in Kent County, and you're right. I mean, when you talk about 30%, my wife is in the real estate business in Rock Hall.
Yep.
She'll tell you, her and her partner, they'll tell you that there's not a week goes by that there isn't at least a couple people will stop in there and say, is there anything to rent?
Yes.
And it goes on, and the answer is no. There's not anything left to rent. A lot of the places have been bought up by people that have second homes now, and which is all great, but the places for people to rent, the housing, that issue is serious in Kent County. So it might have been a short presentation, but it's dealing with a very serious problem in Eric County. And we appreciate somebody taking a look at it and trying to do something with it.
Actually, the mayor of Roswell has reached out. We're trying to set up a meeting with them now because he is interested in us trying to see what we can do there as well.
Yeah.
Definitely an issue.
Well, it is, it's one that we appreciate somebody trying to help us deal with it, because it is a problem.
No problem at all. So any opportunities or challenges, if you're sitting there one day going, what do I do with this piece of land? You just give us a call, okay?
There is a piece of land in Rock Hall that's available for something like that, and you tell the mayor of Rock Hall that called you that if they pass a text amendment to change one little piece of the zoning, something will happen on that piece of property. I do know that that's out there, so.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I think they are working on forward with that, so there may be some things taking place down there, but there's other parts of the county as well that are that need some help just as much, so.
Well, we're here, so thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, have a great day.
I'm gonna mispronounce somebody's name here. It's Frank Cinquagrani? Cinquagrani, or?
That's good. If you're super Italian, Cinquagrani.
I didn't completely destroy it.
No.
Okay. Is Senior Account Manager for Enterprise Fleet Management Program.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen. Commissioners, for having me out. Certainly appreciate it. Yep, Frank C. Granny with Enterprise Fleet Management. I've actually been working with your county for over 5 years now. Actually, this is the 5th year we've been working together. So today I was just coming out to give just a quick kind of a refresher on the program and to give you some specifics from where we started in 2018 to where we are now. And to answer any questions you guys have about progress on the program or any specific questions that have come up over the last few years. And congratulations to you. I know you worked with the Sheriff's Department before. But yeah, I was going to dive into it here and stop me along the way if you have any questions.
Okay.
So just a few housekeeping things here. So we work with several entities, government entities around Baltimore. As you can see, since we partnered with you, we've partnered with probably 10 or 15 other government entities in Maryland. And we've been able to do that through our co-op with Sourcewell. I believe we have the bid through Sourcewell through 2026, I believe it is. At any point, it's important to note that this is, none of our contracts state that you have to stay with Enterprise. I think it's important to mention that because if we don't live up to our end of the bargain, then the partnership's not going to work. So everything's open-ended, but you can see that we've really started to impact a lot of entities in a positive way. And we obviously have a great relationship with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and we kind of take that model and extrapolate it out to what makes sense for the different entities that we work with. And funny enough, government entities kind of fit that mold because of being tax exempt and getting access to higher incentives than the general public or me and you would be able to get, which allows this program to fit very, very well in the government space. Just real quick, these are all the different, everything in green are things that Kent County is doing today or utilizing through Enterprise. The only things that we don't have currently managed through Enterprise are the telematics program, which is through Geotab. They do have a Sourcewell contract as well. Some people use that obviously to track their vehicles. It's a good way to get an odometer reading and fleet plan. Accident management, we can actually manage accidents for government entities from start to finish if that was something that you guys would be interested in. But everything else on here, you fully utilize. We have fuel programs, maintenance programs. We handle the resale for the majority of your vehicles. Mike and I have done aftermarket customization for every single vehicle we pretty much ordered on your behalf over the last 5 years. So as I said, we've been a partner since May 2018. Right now, as it stands today, between the sheriff and the general fleet vehicles, you have 63 vehicles on lease with Enterprise. We did a fleet synopsis when we first partnered, and I kind of pulled some of that data from 2018 and brought it forth to what the current fleet condition is today. So when we partnered in 2018, you had 42 vehicles that were over 10 years old, and some of them were significantly over 10 years old. And your average model year for your entire fleet was 9.6, or for the general fleet was 9.6 years old. I'm happy to say today you're at 4.5 model years old as of right now. We just turned in about 20 vehicles that were significantly older too that we're in the process of selling for you. And now you only have 4 vehicles that are over 10 years old. So a much safer fleet, much more fuel efficient fleet, and it's really helped lower your maintenance. Your average vehicle cycle has gone from over 15 years to 8 years, and that's resulted in the next bullet point there about maintenance. So you had an estimated maintenance cost for your general fleet of $110 per vehicle per month in 2018. That has now been reduced to $50.22 per vehicle over the last 12 months. So that's roughly an estimated savings of around $55,000. Big part of that, again, as we replaced 42 vehicles are over 10 years old. There were a lot of vehicles that we picked up and sold for you over the past 5 years, 38 to be exact. But over the years, we started out, we pretty much towed every vehicle out of here and sold them for you guys. And as we started to replace the older vehicles and older vehicles and older vehicles, the majority of the stuff we picked up the past couple of weeks has been able to driven off the lot. And we should actually be able to get the average sale price up 5 for the ones we're selling for you, the 20 or so we're selling for you, should sell for between 5 and 10 grand a piece, if not more. But for the 38 vehicles that we did sell, the average model age of those vehicles was 2007. To put it in perspective how old the vehicles were that we have now moved out of the fleet. To get $2,700 a vehicle for those vehicles being over 16 years old on average is pretty significant. But COVID did, for a little while, yep, right here. COVID did, you can see in 2021, we did not acquire 1 vehicle, which did put us behind the 8 ball a little bit, but we are getting back on track. The combination of supply chain issues and lead times kind of made it to where we did deliver a bunch of vehicles toward the end of this fiscal year. And now we're going to reap the benefits for vehicles that we're turning in. But overall, for your fleet, this is excluding the sheriff's department. When we did the original fleet synopsis, we separated those 2 entities out. But this is kind of echoing what those bullet points were on the last page. But you can see that we now only have 1 vehicle of 150,000 miles, 2 vehicles that are between 100 and 150,000 miles, 13 that are between 50 and 100,000 miles, and 59 vehicles that are under 50,000 miles. So you've significantly refreshed your fleet in a 5-year period. We've pretty much cut your average age of your fleet in half, and we're on to a more sustainable holding period for your fleet. The question usually comes up, like, why would a government entity replace their vehicles quicker? Usually from a public perception, it's like, why are we spending the money on new vehicles more frequently? The answer to that, next slide. So if you take into mind what Enterprise Rent-A-Car does, we typically, because of the volume we have, we buy vehicles, get significant discounts, we rent them out for a couple of years, and then we sell them back to the general public. We're like we are the largest vehicle acquirer in the world. But for government entities, they're not too far off from that because they get access to incentives that me or you would not be able to get. For a little while there, it was to the point where a government entity could buy an F-150 pickup truck and then sell it in 12 months and usually make money off of the vehicle itself. Again, that's due to the fact that you're tax exempt and the fact you get unique incentives that no one else would have access to, including our commercial partners. Which is why, for you, it doesn't make sense to run vehicles for 10, 15, 20 years, because at that point, you're running into higher depreciation costs, you're running into higher fuel costs, higher maintenance repairs, and less safe. The safe vehicles are obviously going to be much safer if you're replacing them sooner. So if you picture it like this, we're trying to find the optimal time to replace. If you have a vehicle and you run it for 10 years, at that point, it's pretty much completely depreciated, where the resale is not that great. Most manufacturers have warranties for between 3 and 5 years. After that 3 to 5 year mark, Kent County will be completely on the hook for vehicles, and it's increasing the risk of the county. So by replacing vehicles sooner and keeping the vehicles under warranty, or in your case, having it covered by enterprise for anything that would not be covered under warranty, we're able to fix that cost and lower a lot of your operational expenses. So that's what we're working on, and we're going to continue to work on that in Kent County. Again, we're a little bit behind from what we originally proposed, but we're not too far behind. Like, we made significant progress over the past several years. Next slide, please. A couple more times. Two more should. Okay. So this gives you a little bit of an example of what I'm talking about as far as optimal replacement and like what the general public can purchase a vehicle for versus what a government entity would purchase a vehicle for. So I took third-party data from TrueCar. I just pulled up a vehicle that is common in your fleet, Chevy 1500 double cab work truck 4x4. If me or you were to go off of a lot right now, we could try to negotiate it under MSRP, maybe get, like it says there, about 3.2% off. In your case, you get $6,300 off of a Chevy 1500 pickup truck under invoice. So you can see just by purchasing the vehicle directly from the manufacturer, getting your government discount, you're already $10,000 under MSRP, where in some cases over the last couple of years, people were paying $10,000 over MSRP. Now, in your case, if you ran that vehicle for 1 year, you could sell it for $35,000, depreciation of $2,900. If we hold it for 5 years, depreciation is $14,000. Sell that vehicle with 50,000 miles on it for $23,500. Depreciation is $14,473. But if you hold the vehicle for 10 years to 100,000 miles, that's roughly what you guys are going between 7,500 and 10,000 miles a year. That vehicle's pretty much fully depreciated. You still have $8,000 there, but at that year 5 mark, it's only depreciated about 40%. And at that point, we've really lessened the risk that Kent County would have as far as increasing operational expenses, because at that point, vehicle still has a lot of life in it, yes, but it's also something that we do very well is selling the vehicles. So we're going to be able to sell that vehicle conservatively for that $23,500 and then give that money back to the county. We pretty much fixed your maintenance costs, and then because of all the CAFE standards out there, to get more fuel efficient vehicles and sooner than later electric vehicles, we'll certainly be able to lower what your operational expenses are. So essentially what you're doing is moving some of your expenses that were traditionally capital purchases. You're increasing your capital budget, but you're reducing your operational expenses. And that's really what you're going to continue to see as we continue to refresh the fleet. I'll pause there. Any questions on the concept or your actual numbers?
I certainly understand the concept, and but you know, it's in government, we're always, especially this year, we've had some real financial issues that we've had to deal with, and sometimes the question always arises, like in Parks and Rec or something, they might have a van there that just transports kids once in a while and might have a handful of miles on it, but it might be 15 years old, and the question always comes up, well, why would you get rid of that? It doesn't have any miles on it. The bigger picture, I think, kind of explains, I think you've done a good job of explaining the theory behind managing this fleet, and but
it's not going to be perfect for every, like, this is a Chevy 1500 truck, right? But this year we replaced one of your crane body trucks. There is no intention on you short cycling that vehicle. So if we're going to manage your vehicles on a vehicle by vehicle basis and what makes the most sense for the county, but I certainly understand what you're saying too. You know, what we've done with Kent County is replace the oldest vehicles in your fleet each year for what's been approved, and we're finally getting to the point where like I said, we're actually able to drive vehicles off the lot that we're selling. So we're really at the point now where we're going to see significant upticks in resale because we're selling vehicles that are not, 15, 20 years old. So we're really at that critical point where you'll be able to see it in the next few weeks when we sell some of the vehicles that still older, but they definitely are operational and will be something that the resale market will want. So I know that this really isn't about continuing the program or anything, but just so you guys know, in the next year, you will see a significant uptick in what the resale amounts are gonna be for your vehicles, simply because we're selling vehicles that are newer and better operation at this point.
So when the county leases a vehicle, it's not like leasing a vehicle like from a dealer. It's not just for 3 or 4 years, 5 years. As long as we have that vehicle, we're still, making a payment on it. Or does it cap out at some point?
Go to the next slide if you could. I'm gonna skip that one. I'll give you, and one more actually. All right, so this is a good visual for what you just asked. So what we run into when we first started partnering with government entities, everything came out of the capital budget, and everyone would do option one, which is pay $25,000 for the vehicle up front, and then you would own the vehicle. We can do all three of these, but most government entities go for option 3. So essentially, we are writing the vehicles down over a 5-year lease in the majority of your vehicles to a residual value. So say the vehicle costs $50,000, we write that vehicle down to $10,000 at the end of year 5. Say you turn that vehicle in, this is where we're different from a dealership lease. If you sell that vehicle for 20 grand or 30 grand, then we're gonna give those proceeds back to you minus what was owed at the end of the lease. So if it was $10,000 owed and we sold the vehicle for 20, then Kent County's gonna get a check for 10 grand. We can certainly do an option 2, which is where the vehicle's paid off after 5 years, and then you continue just to, you will not have a lease payment after 5 years. The only payment you have is what we would call a management fee. It's 20, I think it's 25, $30 in the Sourcewell contract to keep that vehicle so that we're still managing your license and title. And then obviously when we go to sell the vehicle. So it's not, there's no mileage restrictions, no wear and tear restrictions. You can literally do anything to these vehicles. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're yours. And then how the better that you take care of them, the better the resale is gonna be, which is gonna be better for the county because we're gonna give you the net of whatever you owed on the vehicle back to you. Does that make sense? Make sure.
In option 2, you said when we sell the vehicle, what is your take when we sell the vehicle?
We charge, it's right on the, I think it's $350 or $400 for Sourcewell members, and that's all that we take. In order for this model to work, we are literally leveraging all of our experience from the rental car side, and we're hand selling these vehicles for you. In order for cycling to work, or the philosophy of cycling to work, we cannot be taking any money from the county or anybody as a benefit to enterprise. Sometimes that's the thought that, like, a dealer should be trade a vehicle in, they're gonna try to buy it for as low as they can, and then they're gonna sell it back to another person. We're not involved in that. We're solely an advocate on your behalf to sell the vehicles through our partners, to get you the most money back, and to use that money as a check, or, you can roll the next vehicle, et cetera, for the county. So we're not involved in that part of it at all from a money-making standpoint. That service charge, what we call it at the end of the lease, is simply for us to pick the vehicle up and sell it on your behalf and transfer the title to the new owner. So in order for this whole program to work again, we actually have people that are rated on how great that they can sell the vehicles for above and beyond what the market is getting. We have a whole department dedicated to that.
Is it fair to say that the newer our fleet becomes, and I think you've said this, the newer our fleet becomes, obviously the more we're gonna get on the trade-ins by far, and that's when it should really start you should really, because there's no question that when I ride around, our fleet is in a whole lot better shape than it was when I started this job some years ago, before you. I mean, our fleet looks better now than it's probably ever looked in my time, obviously, because we're having newer vehicles. And am I accurate in saying that that's when you start really seeing a benefit to this?
Yeah, because over the last 5 years or so, we've been, like that stat they were saying, I mean, the vehicles we were selling average model year 2007, so the resale part hasn't been a huge factor. We're still getting more than just sending it to salvage when you were getting around $500 roughly for those vehicles. But right now, over the next 12, 24 months is really when you're gonna see a huge uptick in the resale perspective, because all those vehicles are running, they're operational, and they're not blown engines, blown transmissions, they're not rusted out. They're still in pretty good condition. And getting the new vehicles, as you saw, you cut your maintenance pretty much in half over a 5-year period, and cut your cycle in half over a 5-year period. And the fuel's kind of hard to throw. We didn't have like all of your previous data for fuel, so it's hard for me to compare the two. But especially in Maryland, as the certain regulation stuff come through for the electric vehicles and hybrids and everything like that, you're gonna continue to drive down what your operational costs are. On the model that we have, it would have been impossible unless you quadrupled or, I don't know, at least 5x what your capital budget was in order to get those vehicles if you would have continued to pay cash. So we're also obviously a funding source for it in a unique way.
An example that I used earlier about maybe a van out to Parks and Rec that's not used much, does that cause you any heartburn if we just say, we're gonna hold on to that? It's we're gonna take that out of the fleet, and we're I guess going against your recommendation to getting rid of it, we're gonna hold on to it because it doesn't have many miles on it. We feel like it's in pretty good shape, and it's used very little.
I think everything's open to a conversation, and for all intents and purposes, these vehicles are yours, you own title to them. So I'm just giving you the recommendation, or like a consultant, and then it's up to you if you proceed with that. So I can understand the thought process there. The vehicle's kind of already depreciated, and it's going from point A to point B. Usually in those circumstances, if it's not already on the list of the oldest vehicles to replace, we would say if you have a large maintenance item like a blown engine or blown transmission, please don't put the money into a 15-year-old vehicle at that point. But what we've been doing specifically for Kent County is literally going through the oldest vehicles and just replacing those in a systematic fashion over the past 5 years.
There's only one thing that I can prove, or in my mind, I can prove in my time here, because I've been here for a while, but I can remember us getting rid of vehicles, and $2,000 was a big ticket when we got rid of a vehicle. I mean, you're right, a lot of what we would get rid of would go to the junkyard, but then every once in a while we'd get a couple $1,000 for something. But I do understand the premise that used cars and vehicles in today, they really bring pretty good money. And
excellent. And I've been able to help you guys navigate if you would have been on your old model just going to a local dealer to purchase vehicles, a lot of them locally did not have the vehicles available. So we're able to kind of go everywhere to get you the vehicles, and we order directly to the manufacturers in most cases. So why that's important, like this sample government buy that was up here earlier, I'm only able to get that because I'm going directly to the manufacturer and getting that vehicle directly from Ford or from Chevy at invoice cost, and then subtracting out what your incentives are. Then you're turning your vehicles in an historical resale market that we've never seen before. It's come back down to earth a little bit, but I should have probably included the chart here. But you can see, like Manheim third-party data, they've been doing it for 20, 25 years, millions of transactions. We're still significantly higher than what we were pre-pandemic in 2019. So that's why I'm really excited for these roughly 20 vehicles that you're turning in, to see the kind of return we get for them, because it's really the first opportunity we've had to sell vehicles in this type of market that are actually not 16-year-old units.
Any other questions, John?
As far as availability now compared to a couple of years ago, is it better or is it still a problem?
Depends on the manufacturer. To keep it specific to Kent County, forward is going to continue to be a real challenge from everything we've heard. I know that's the majority of your fleet, so my recommendation may be to switch to Chevy for several of those units, just because the incentives are higher. That's for, I guess, a separate conversation, but we don't see a huge change in the market, especially for government entities. It's still a challenge for certain vehicles. With the push to electric, that's going to be really the next thing. It's been a huge conversation, especially in the government world, for what that availability is going to look like.
It's going to be huge here because there's not a whole lot of infrastructure here for that.
Right.
So,
And I work with a lot of entities on the Eastern Shore, so I know, I guess the Royal Farms, I think they have charging stations, but, anyway, we're not quite, yeah, we're not quite there yet. But I mean, specifically for police vehicles, or sheriff vehicles, they've been a challenge. I do think in the fall time, we'll be able to go back to factory ordering those types of units, and they'll probably get here in the fall, or I'm sorry, in the spring. Pickup trucks are gonna be okay. Cargo vans are very, very tough still. So it's gonna be touch and go, but.
What about a dump truck that we've had ordered for over a year?
I don't think he fools with them, do you?
Yeah.
You don't do that?
No, they don't do that.
That's separate.
Yeah, we use the big stuff.
I was blaming you for that. So I noticed in your earlier slide, you said 63 vehicles that the county has?
Yep, on lease through us.
Okay, so that during our budget process, I heard that we have 136 county-owned vehicles?
So that was general fleet and then the sheriff's vehicles. The sheriff's vehicles are left out of that number. And then we just turned in roughly 20, 25 vehicles that I took out of that data because it didn't make sense to put it in there because we're in the process of picking them up.
Okay.
When we first partnered, in 2018, you had 76 vehicles in the, we'll call them the general fleet, and now you have 75. So, got rid of one, net. The sheriff's vehicles are unique, as you know, but I know we have some in the hopper to get replaced this year.
There's a lot of aftermarket stuff that has to go in there.
Yep, and it's
And that's why, those vehicles, we've got two right now, two Tahoes out there that, one of them has 80,000 on it now, the other one, I don't know what the mileage is, but it's nowhere near a safety issue. And because of all the aftermarket stuff that we put in them, I mean, you're looking at over $100,000 in a vehicle with all that equipment in there. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense, to replace a vehicle like that. Until you really feel that it's a safety risk.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that one. I mean, every vehicle's gonna be treated, like, we're gonna look at it, look at the numbers and see, like, I'll go to the aftermarket folks to see how much of that police equipment can be moved from one vehicle to the other. General consensus, about 50% of it can be moved, but that's assuming that you don't switch to a different.
The manufacturers are very good at changing the way the seats are made and the hump in there, and sometimes it's just not interchangeable.
Yeah, and and so that's something that we'll approach every year and decide if it makes sense to do. The thing with the sheriff's vehicles, it is kind of unique. You have a lot more idle time than probably anybody else. So an hour of idle time is equivalent to 30 miles on engine wear. And with a lot of other counties that I work with, they go through transmissions consistently. They go through engines consistently and are more rapid pace. So a vehicle in the sheriff's department that has 80,000 miles on it that's what it says on the odometer, but in reality, it probably has well over 100,000 just because of the amount of idle time that's on them. But you are absolutely right. I mean, you're averaging $25,000 to $30,000 in upfit on each one of those units. So that's part of what I'm looking at too when I'm looking at what should be replaced. If 5 years makes sense, then let's do 5 years. If 3 years makes sense, let's do 3 years. If 7 years makes sense, we'll do that. But right now for Kent County, we're really just trying to get you caught up. And then we'll be able to start having the conversations when we're actually, again, we've been partners for 5 years, so next year is really going to be the time to start replacing the first set of vehicles that you got through us. And you'll be able to see the full picture of what it's like to sell a lease unit, if that's what you decide to do.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to hear it from you. If you get a half-ton pickup, F-150, and then you get an F-250, obviously the resale value for the F-250, you probably is going to be more than the F-150.
Yep, yep.
Do you know how much on average that might be? I mean, I know a lot of it depends on the mileage and the shape of the vehicle, but two vehicles that are in fairly good shape with like 40,000 miles on them,
The thing there is,
resale would, is there that
So-
much difference?
it's gonna be, because the F-250 is gonna cost more than the F-150, so they're both gonna sell relatively the same. I'm just saying it's gonna obviously net you more money, but the asset also costs you more money up front. Short cycling does make sense for a lot of government entities depending on the model, but those opportunities are evaluated every year. I'll give you one really strong example, and don't hold me to the numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this because I'm the one that did it. But Wycomico County Public Schools, they ordered a Suburban, and I think it was around 42, 43 grand, and they were having like some issues with it mechanically. It's a brand new vehicle, and they ended up saying, let's go ahead and sell it, because they ended up, the need went away. We sold the vehicle for $57,000. So they bought for 42, and then we sold it for 57 in less than a year.
So you sold a lemon for $57,000.
Yeah, what'd you say? Yeah, well,
Sold a lemon.
yep, it was fixed and everything, it's under warranty. But point being there's gonna be those opportunities that come up, and the market's gonna go up and down, and it's Enterprise's job to make sure that we're guiding you in the right direction. Not, my job here today is not to tell you to replace your whole fleet in a year, but just going to give you the example of, what you have access to.
Okay?
That's good.
Any more?
Very good, no?
Thank you very much for
Thank you,
coming
Frank.
in. You did a great job explaining I've heard it before, my colleagues, it's the first time they've had an opportunity, and it's always nice to, and when we talk about our fleet management, that we all three have a good idea of what's going on there, and you certainly did a good job of explaining it, so thank you very much.
No problem, and when we sell these roughly 20 vehicles, I'll share that information with Mr. Molds, and maybe he can share it with you guys too.
Can you sell them like tomorrow? Because we could use the money. We're in our budget session.
We're picking them up, so they're coming.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, Director of Public Works.
I've only got one item for you today. It's an annual item that we address for some road work. What we're looking for is approval to piggyback on a contract for the line striping that we do on the roads. Through Howard County, using their contract, we have $50,000 in the budget for doing line striping in FY '23. We've used this company, Alpha Space Control, many years. I've even used them in my prior employments, so they do a really good job with it. So we need to get the work done before we get to the end of the year here and get started. So, traditional contract.
After hearing that, I'd like to make a motion to piggyback on the March 23rd, 2023 Howard County Department of County Administration Contract Number PA 096-2023 with Alpha Space Control Company Incorporated for roadway line striping not to exceed the amount of $50,000 under the same pricing terms and conditions of Howard County Department of County Administration Contract Number PA 096-2023. This contract will expire June 30th, 2023, with the option to renew for 5 one-year options.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mike.
Did you have any questions or anything for me?
We will.
What's that?
I said we will.
Oh.
Thanks, Mark.
Jamie Williams, Economic and Tourism Development, and she has some appointment recommendations.
Good morning.
Morning.
So the first I'd like to thank you for reappointing Mr. Story to the Economic and Tourism Development Commission at your previous meeting. I would like to share that, when I took over economic development for the county, Mr. Story was working in a different capacity, but he was a mentor to me right away. And I've learned a lot from him, from his experience through the state, working around the state about economic development and different areas. So I appreciate the reappointment of Mr. Story. This is going to be the year of change for the Economic and Tourism Development Commission. You have a recommendation before you today, and you will have another recommendation before you next week. And then at the end of this year, our chair, Aaron Bramble, will term off of the list as well. So we'll be looking to replace Aaron. So good time for a public service announcement that if there is anyone interested in serving on any of the county boards and committees, and in this case, the Economic and Tourism Development Commission, to please complete and submit an interest form, and that's the pool that we go to when there are vacancies. So I just wanted to share that. One of the things that Mr. Story and the commission implemented was a membership committee to make recommendations to the county commissioners and an interview process. So you have the information before you. Some of the things that they consider is the industry sector, the individual's credentials, the geographic region, also demographics, we'd love more diversity with gender, race, those kinds of things. But ultimately, qualifications and contributions to the commission is what the membership committee is looking for. So you have a recommendation before you today for your consideration.
Any comments or anything?
I don't have any.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint the candidate recommended by the membership committee.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One other comment I'd like to share is the nice thing about the Economic and Tourism Development Commission. In my tenure, it's almost 10 years now, we've not had a lack of interest forms. And those that serve and then term off of the commission remain very involved and active and still contribute to the department and the initiatives that we work on. So I really appreciate that from the community as well, because obviously we need input from all of the different industries and community sectors so that we can make informed decisions and recommendations for the county commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Mackey. Sitting over there all quiet and stuff. How you today?
I'm fine, sir, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
Very patient people today.
Huh?
We've had a lot of very patient people today.
Yes, yes.
We had a heavy agenda.
I was thinking when Mike sat there, he sat here all day long to get that approved for that striping.
Well, I have to say, I actually have enjoyed the presentations and learning about how the fleet system works, et cetera, so
Yeah,
it's been really instructional.
He's ready for a new car.
Thank you. Well, the item before you right now is a request by a property owner to release 3 bonds related to the construction of a single-family residence. Each of those bonds is in a little bit of a different place. I think we've outlined that in the report to you, and staff recommends a sort of, I would say, phased approval. So, happy to answer any questions you might have.
So the stormwater bond, how close is it?
At this point, I believe it's submittal of the stormwater maintenance and easement agreement. I understand that the property owner's representative wants to propose some changes to that document. I thought it was finalized. I'm not really sure how extensive those changes are, so we have to review that. Then that would be signed and recorded, so.
I was under the impression too that it was pretty much done and over.
Right.
But you think it's probably pretty close to being totally done?
Yes, sir.
Now, the third one has to do with the buffer zone.
Yes.
Are you asking us to approve all 3 releases, or are you just asking for one right now?
Asking for one right now, sir.
That's what we've typically done is, release them promptly when the work's been done. If there's a bond where there's a portion of it done, sometimes we've done a partial release, or we've, lowered the letter of credit. The whole idea is, one, to have something out there to provide an incentive for the property owner to rapidly get it done. And second, in case it doesn't get done, we're not holding the bag, that there's a pot of money out there to ensure it gets done. So I think what Mr. Mackey is proposing is consistent with what we've done in the past. It seems to be a reasonable solution here, where we can give the property owner some relief right now, and as soon as he gets done what he needs to do, it's on our radar, so without delay, we'll get it before you to get the other ones released.
Yes, sir.
My knowledge of the stormwater situation is, it's a very minimal amount of stuff that has to be done to accomplish and meet the requirement that you're asking for. Before I make a motion, I'd like to see us consider releasing, obviously, one for the sediment and erosion control, and also go ahead and release the one for the stormwater. Hold on to the third bond, which is the buffer zone. It's my understanding that the plantings that are required are going to be going in on June 3rd or 4th.
Early June's my understanding, too.
It's being conducted or performed by Angelica Nurseries, and it's been contracted and scheduled to start that day. Once that planning is done, then I would encourage the property owner to come back and ask for that one to be released as well. And then they can get their occupancy permit, or maybe they can get it now, I don't know.
They can certainly get a temporary now.
Is it possible to
I
do
don't think he's interested in getting the temporary. He wants to complete it, he wants to be done, totally.
Is it possible to do a partial release of the bond that where some performance has been done where it's not complete? I know traditionally we've done partial releases, but we haven't generally fully released a bond until all the work's been done. That's been typically how it's been done over the years with bonds.
Well, in thinking about, I think we're talking stormwater management at this point, perhaps today you could release it with the condition, right, that our council agrees with whatever changes they're making to the agreement. That's really my one concern, is I don't know what they're proposing.
That he fulfill the requirement. Okay, so let me make a motion to release bond number 107-30618, which has to do with erosion and sediment control. And let me find it here real quick.
Same number, just 19.
Bond number 107-30619, which deals with stormwater management for the project at 4846 Huntingfield Road. Contingent on the second bond that I mentioned, the one that ends in 619, that the owner fulfill the required regulations, restrictions before that. And if he doesn't, then he's responsible for it.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
The other thing, Bill, before you leave.
Yes, sir.
There's a, what do they call that? In lieu of, or,
Yes. A fee in lieu, so,
yeah. At the end of the planning, there's a fee that has been assessed. I guess that's by the Planning and Zoning Office.
well, what happens is there's a required number of plantings, and in a situation where the site is very tight, we allow people to make as much of the planting as they can physically do. We do the count at the inspection, and then whatever's remaining, they can pay a fee in lieu. And the idea is that we do that after the actual planting, because sometimes more things can get fitted on the site. It might reduce the fee, and we have an estimated fee usually, what we expect them to do, based on their plan.
Right now, it's estimated at around $6,000.
Yes, sir.
Does the county have the authority to soften that some? In other words, what I'm saying is that
Right.
a citizen of the county here who has been through what this family's been through, and not that you've done anything to make it hard on them, it's just that this has been a 3-year process. And they spent an awful lot of money building a new home and trying to do everything that they are required to do. And now we're asking for $6,000 to go into a fund, which I'm not sure really where that money goes, but, or exactly what's done with it, but,
It goes for projects like the Rigby Slope project.
okay. Is there a way to give them some consideration for a lesser amount?
I can certainly look into that, sure.
I mean, I don't want to do anything wrong here, but, and if we do this, we need to consider this for everybody that comes in here with these issues. I'm not trying to open up a can of worms, but $6,000 is a lot of money when I know he's put out thousands already to do the buffer zone and the stormwater with the rain gardens and all that stuff. It's just,
Right.
Sometimes county residents feel like it's over the top sometimes, and I realize it's not always your fault or anything else. Sometimes it's required at the state level too.
I think,
And this
I
is
was
a
gonna make that
critical
Bill may
area.
have
Most
to
of
see
all-
what the state requires.
This is a critical area issue, so I will have to look into
Right.
it, yeah.
I was going to, right, most of this is state
Right.
issue, not county issue.
Well, certainly
Happy
I'm
to
not,
look into it.
suggesting that we do anything that's not squeaky clean.
And I just want to bring up, I was doing some reading, I did a little research, and it was brought to my attention that a lot of these bonds were required or started to be required because of what happened at the village of Kennedyville, where the developer just kind of got halfway through and said, it's your baby, and here we are still waiting for streetlights. So that's why a lot of these, that's what these bonds are here for, is to protect us, the citizens. You know, so, but that one was brought to my attention
Yeah.
just this weekend, so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Jill Coleman. Jill is the Director of Parks and Recreation.
First thing I'm here for is, we have 2 current PRAB board members who their terms have expired. They have expressed interest that they would like to continue to serve on our board. So I'd like to make a motion to reappoint the 2 candidates to the PRAB board for an additional 4 years term.
I'll make a motion to reappoint the recommended candidates to the Kent County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a 4-year term ending on December 31st, 2027.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Before you go any further, Joe, I just want to say, being a new guy at this, you call it the PRAB. I am on this board, and I get the emails, you have a PRAB board, and I'm like, I don't even, what is that? So anyhow, everything has these acronyms.
Yeah.
You scare me with the PRAB. I didn't even know I was on PRAB until, yeah.
Second thing on the agenda is to talk about a discussion about Betterton Beach lifeguards this year. So recruitment and hiring of lifeguards has been a little challenging this year. Currently, right now, we are at 17 lifeguards, 2 of which are part-time, 5 of which currently still need to go through the certification class. On an average, we usually have about 25 to 30 lifeguards that we hire in order for us to be able to guard all of our locations. So that's our 3 pools and our Betterton Beach. It's a hard decision to make, but with the current 17 lifeguards that we have, it's almost impossible to guard all of 4 locations. Because we have the park supervisor down to the Betterton Beach, and because at times when we're not guarding down to Betterton Beach, it is swim at your own risk down to Betterton Beach when we don't have lifeguards on duty. So I'm here to
you'll put some signage up
Yes, sir.
explaining that. And just for my colleague, it's not the first time we've had to do this. As a matter of fact, there was a decision made that there were several years that we never had. This is not something unusual. It's not the desired way of doing it. We all understand that. But I can attest to the fact that we've had to do it in the past. And I don't know what you do if you can't get them. So I understand I understand your request, and it's not the first time we've had to do it, but I don't know what my colleagues think, but
Well,
it's,
if someone comes along and they're interested in maybe filling those jobs, I mean, I would
Sure.
certainly encourage you to bring them on, but
you know, we can
Oh,
re-
in the
absolutely.
meantime.
No,
but-
absolutely. If I get, I mean, if all of a sudden we have a big surge and
Yeah.
I get 25, 30 lifeguards, we will definitely set up, they have to have open water training. We will definitely have that training for them, and we'll definitely guard American Beach. But at the current level that we have,
Just
there's
don't have it.
no way. It takes 14 when all of our locations are open, it takes 14 lifeguards to guard all 4 of our locations.
And then there's vacations and sicknesses, et cetera. So
and I think
17 is.
obviously the pools have to get some kind of, they have to get priority because you can fall off, a little kid can fall off the side of a swimming pool that's 7 or 8 feet deep and is in trouble. At a beach, you gotta really, you gotta walk over your head. It is a little bit different, it's a lot safer. A little beach in Rock Hall, they don't have lifeguards there, and I understand the reason and the rationale behind it. It's unfortunate, but I don't see any other way of getting around it.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve no lifeguards at Betterton Beach for the 2023 summer season unless you find some additional staffing that can accommodate that.
And don't hesitate to come back and let us know, and we'll change our way of doing it.
Second.
Yes. Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Joe.
County Administrator.
Okay, thank you. 2 items for you this afternoon. The first is an annual request. We literally receive this every single year from the Department of Housing and Community Development to transfer our portion, Kent County's portion of the bond allocation to them. And if, assuming we do this, as far as I know, all counties do this, they can administer various programs that have to do with housing, such as issuing mortgage credit certificates or funding other first-time home buyers programs, et cetera. So the recommendation is to transfer our bond allocation to the DHCD.
Any questions?
No.
I don't think so.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of Kent County's 2023 bond allocation to Department of Housing and Community Development.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Secondly, from time to time, we do receive a request for waiver of interest on a late property tax bill or water and sewer bill payment. We have another such one of these. County policy is to not grant these waivers unless we have found that it's county staff's fault for the late payment receipt. For example, if we've typed in an incorrect address or something along those lines. This is not a county staff error, so we're recommending denial of the waiver.
What is the amount of the fee?
It's just over $400.
$40 or something, Sheriff.
But in this one, it seemed did I read that it was sent to had the wrong address on it?
It was sent to the correct address, the one that was on the deed. Later, the gentleman stopped working there and sent an updated address request, and when that happened, we changed it in our systems. But at that point, the property tax bill had already gone out, and the letter was literally sitting in a box for him at his previous
Yeah, I think
employer.
that was his complaint, that his employer, or his former employer, was not forwarding his mail to him in a timely manner. So he got a big box of mail that went to him at his old business address, was sent to him at home several months after the fact. It was like accumulated. But that's between him and his employer. I mean, the county finance office sent the bill to the address that the property owner directed it to go to. And apparently when he retired or left his job, he didn't change it right away, or it was changed after the bill was sent out. And then the mail, his employer didn't forward his mail to him in a timely manner. So that's kind of out of our control. We typically, as Shelley has said, only grant a request if it was an error or an omission that we made. If it's something on the end connected with the property owner or something that's out of our control, we don't, our policy has not been to grant the relief.
Et cetera, any number of scenarios.
Yeah, bless you.
Well, no, I guess I had a comment. When I read it, I thought maybe we would, I didn't, I guess being, again,
No,
the new
look,
guy. But having, I don't know that we want to open that Pandora's box if it's not the county's. I mean, maybe the gentleman can go back to his previous employer and see if they'll reimburse him if that's.
I read over it. I was like you. We've always had the policy, like if it was late getting the post office, it was an issue with the post office, you know, we can't be responsible for that. But when I first read it, I thought it was that we had sent it to the wrong address, and I'm thinking, well, this one's different because it is their fault, but that's not exactly the case.
Is there any history with this person not paying their taxes on time?
I don't have that information.
I think he just purchased the property. What happens is when you buy property, you have to do a land intake sheet where you supply an address where the tax bill goes. So the owner did that, and the county finance office sent the tax bill to the address designated by the property owner. Sometime after that, and apparently the property owner designated his work address because this was a second home. The property owner left that employment. After the tax bill was sent out, at some point he did do a change of address, but it was not in time for this. And then the employer, some time later, took a whole box of mail, this is according to the property owner, and then forwarded that to him. The employer didn't do that in a timely manner, so it was several months after the fact when he paid his bill. That being said, the property owner, I believe, did acknowledge that he knew that he did owe property taxes. And the property owner could have said, I don't have a bill. He could have inquired about that, but he didn't. I think he waited until several months later after the employer forwarded him the bill. He goes to pay it, and then on the bill it shows this, you know, the schedule that each month you're late, the interest accumulates.
Well, it sounds like an unfortunate situation, but I don't think it's anything that we want to change at this point in time, and there's no county fault, so. Unfortunately, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to deny the request to return the penalty fees assessed.
I second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. You are not Miss Bonnie Pearsall, but we'll,
I am going to, will fill in for Inspector Pearsall
All righty.
on these 3 items. So before you have 3 items, 2 are license updates. The first is in regard to a warning that was issued to a licensed establishment for failing to meet the minimum requirements based on the classification of license they possess. And we will be working with that establishment on a monthly basis to check in and see if there's license issued. So we were able to accommodate that request in a short-term amount of time.
Thank you.
And then the last is a request to accept a change in membership. There was some movement with Seatown Liquors during the renewal process whereby they designated another member to come onto their license. We were working with that licensee or that applicant to meet the contingencies. And in doing so, and reviewing all the documentation, it turns out it was a little more complicated than that. So before you today is a request to accept the membership change as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the membership changes to the alcohol beverage license as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. President, before you go to public comment, I have one just item real fast to report out to you. Last week, you had asked me to look into Daisy Drive and mowing the property. So I spoke on the telephone with Christine Williams, who is the ex-wife/widow, and advised her of the situation. I also communicated by email to Erica Redmond, who is the attorney for the estate. So the situation at hand is nothing that we haven't had before with respect to this property, is there's not much cooperation or communication between the estate and the ex-wife, but they have both been made aware of the seriousness of the situation and that if the property is not regularly mowed, more citations will be issued. And I feel pretty confident, Mr. Mackey has also communicated with Ms. Redmond by email as well, that I think she will take the lead to make sure the property gets mowed. There's an issue, there was insurance proceeds for the property, and there is a dispute between the estate and the widow as to whether or not the estate gets the entire insurance proceeds or they're split 50-50, and I've explained that's an issue for them, we're not involved in that. But those proceeds obviously could be used to maintain the property, so there's an issue there. But the short of it is, we're on it, we're keeping track of it, we're gonna monitor it, and if it doesn't get mowed, we'll be issuing citations and following up.
Thank you very much. Time for public comment, media review. Anyone wants to have a Mike?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys fitting me in. It's a long morning for you. And I've got a current situation that's bad, and I would like to present a past situation that's in the process of being remedied to give you guys some context. I've lived in Chesapeake Landing for 22 years, and not for one day have I enjoyed not having a blatant zoning violation within 3 blocks of me. And that's because of the Stevie Green debacle. And after complaining, Amy Moordock made special provisions for him, and 2 of the provisions were he was to be the only employee, and that as stated by code, the honey dippers are supposed to be under roof. I came to this body and provided pictures that the truck is bigger than the doorway to the shed and got no sympathy. The honey dipper couldn't even fit in the shed that he's proposing going under roof. And William Pickram tells me that he can't make this guy not operate an illegal business, not in the proper zoning. He's running an excavation sewer business in a residential neighborhood, now for over 20 years. And it might not sound like a big deal, but, you know, Saturday evening when I'm on the back porch eating soft crabs, I shouldn't have to listen to power washers at 6 o'clock at night, blah, blah, blah. That's just to help you get some perspective from my position, because we've all got our own way of looking at the world. Now I got this Wiggins guy. He rents a house on Cloquet. Right in the frequently asked questions section of the zoning ordinances, can I store an unregistered vehicle on my property? No. If a vehicle isn't currently registered, it has to be in a garage. So this guy's got 10 vehicles at the house he rents on Cloquet, and he buys 2 vacant lots across the street from me on Clarissa. A little bit over a year ago, he runs out of room, got them spilling out in the road, all up and down. Junk vehicles, I'm not talking about used cars, I'm talking about junks that he's parking out. Dents, dings, leaking oil. So he starts moving them to this vacant lot across the street from me. Blatant violation. I start complaining. This is a year ago. The first guy planning and zoning sends, he comes, and at the time there was 3 vehicles. He would shuffle them in and out, depending on what his business doing, his illegal business. So this Michael, I can't remember his name, the guy that preceded Brian, he comes after me pestering him. You brought me out here for this? There's only 3 vehicles. I'm like, what is wrong with the culture? With this, what is wrong with the mindset? So now this guy, arrogant, in a year's time, he's in violation. He piles swing sets and all kinds of junk on this lot across the street in a residential neighborhood. I pay my taxes. I obey the law. I don't deserve the protections afforded by the law of Kent County. Why don't I get the benefit of the zoning laws? So now the guy's bringing them back, trails of oil from him taking them off the rollbacks and pushing them into this vacant lot. He's been breaking law for a year. He hasn't been written a citation. He's operating with impunity. So I obey the law. I don't get the benefit of the zoning laws. He gets benefit beyond the zoning laws. And he's a crook. So I start looking him up. He's got a history of violence. He's got a history of malicious destruction. Recidivism. And you know, your previous job, it's a small percentage. Again and again and again. And if nothing happens, if he gets to save money by running his operation illegally, and there's no punishment, why shouldn't he? Why not? Why spend the money to be legal? I had a business. I needed industrial zoning. I had to spend a lot of money to get that kind of zoning. It just baffles me. Now he's bought the lot next to him. The word is, his intention is, put up a garage and operate a business in a residential neighborhood against the zoning. Now, I had to tolerate Stevie Green for 20 years. Am I going to spend my last 20 years tolerating this guy with no punitive action taken against him? Well, it's bizarre to me. It's upside down, inside out. It should not be this way. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't complain. But God, I'd like to have the benefit of what is spelled out, black and white, in the ordinances. I pay my taxes. Isn't that what I'm supposed to get for paying my taxes?
So, Mr. Wiggins, you said he is going to put up a garage or he's not? Or he has?
Word is that all I have is the word. He's not my friend. I don't talk to him. And I don't want to. And there's the other thing. I'm 68 years old. This guy's got a history of violence. So the county's inaction puts me in a position of conflict with a guy with a violent history.
Is he a homeowner or is he
I believe he rents the house on Cloquet from the Reed brothers.
Bill, it sounds like we have some violations here. Yes, sir. According to the code. Can we get some enforcement out there to, and if there's an environmental issue with the oil and everything else, leaking transmission fluid, whatever might be going on, then we need to address that too.
Exactly. There's another point, John, if I may interrupt. Chesapeake Bay, D- again. This guy's, there's oil in the road just from getting moved over a 5-minute period. What's on the lot? Right next to the lot is drain right into Mill Creek.
He's got a bunch of cars there now.
8.
And that's a clear violation if they're
You know-
unregistered. And it sounds like they're just junkers to begin with.
Yeah.
He's selling whatever parts he can sell off of them.
Exactly.
And basically just walking away from the scrap metal.
Exactly.
We need to probably make him clean it up. I mean, did the Reed brothers buy the additional lots, or did Mr. Wiggins buy the lots?
I believe he bought one of them from, I think it was Chuck that owned the lot. Now he's bought the adjacent lot. I don't believe it.
Or maybe he's renting it from him or something for storage of these trash trucks.
The deed is in his name, Randolph Wiggins,
Really, okay. All right.
and both of them. And he has cleared the lot, so that's consistent with the story that he intends to put up a pole building and run a garage there. You know, and how,
Well, I
it's
think
frustrating.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Mr. Mackey will have somebody go out and check out
We've been out to the site. He has clear-cut a critical area site. There's pretty high fines for that. Like you described at the property, vehicles go onto the property. We take action to reach out. People remove the vehicles. That happens in a lot of properties. People keep moving around. But in this case, he really has clear-cut a lot. We have no application, so I don't know what his intentions are, but that clear-cutting would appear to be a pretty serious critical area violation. I asked the code enforcement team, they were going to send a letter yesterday. I said, let's wait for this conversation just for more information, but we learned about the clear cutting last week. We'll certainly follow up with the letter and the violation and the notice of fines.
Here's my problem, exactly. I've been fighting this for a year. You're gonna send a letter? I mean, from my perspective, and none of us can see the back of our head. We all see the world from where we sit. Those vehicles should be loaded up, taken to Bennett and Coe, get the cash you get, use it to pay the fine. How long am I supposed to wait? How long is Chesapeake Bay supposed to wait?
I don't have the authorization or power to impound vehicles.
Well, I'm sure there's a way to get it.
Well, let's start with the inspections and you've got to notify them. I mean, it sounds like a letter's just kicking the can, but that's where we start. But there will be some follow-up, that's what we can tell you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
And sincere thanks for the job you guys do. I wouldn't want your job.
There's days when we don't want to do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe you can
Thank you.
report back maybe next week.
Thank
Or
you.
what?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bill, if you don't
Bill.
mind, could you report back next week, or not next week, but the following week on the 6th?
Sure.
What you guys found out and what action's being taken.
Yes, sir.
And do we
Yeah,
have an
this sounds like
email,
a-
do we
this-
have an email for you that we can maybe just let you know as well what?
I provided it, well, yeah.
Okay.
This sounds more like another Daisy Drive thing, where, you know, the person in violation is gonna be very slow dragging their feet, and we need to expedite that if we can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ms. Janet?
Janet Christensen, Lewis, Millington. I know you guys are trying to save on your budget, and one thing that you could do on your electric bill would be not to have this room in the below refrigerator temperature range. It doesn't feel quite, it feels warmer up here than it does back there, but it's freezing.
I'll take full responsibility.
Mr. Price, how do you feel?
You see, I brought my blanket today because I've been sitting back there freezing. I brought a blanket.
It's helping you stay awake.
Yeah, right. Which you need. This meeting has been going on for a while, so I'll hurry up.
You got another one at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. At least I know that's when these meetings will end. I sent a letter, and I hope all of you got it, requesting that the hearing that you're going to have on the 13th be moved from a 10 o'clock in the morning meeting to a 6 p.m. meeting. We are always trying to encourage the public to participate, and I know that sometimes there's people, farmers and people, retired people like me, that can get to 10 o'clock meetings, but a lot of the people that have something to say about this text amendment that you're putting forward are young working families. They have kids they have to take care of, and they have jobs that they have to go to. They can't call in on the phone, and they would like to participate, but you're making it hard for them to do so. So I would appreciate it if you would consider that change. I know you've changed meetings this year. You've moved dates. You've moved it from 10 to 6 and 6 to 10 and Tuesday to Wednesday. And it seems like in this particular case that you might be able to make that accommodation as well.
The only problem we have is that the notice has been sent out for the paper, and it's too late to turn it back.
Their advertisements are, I mean, I've advertised in the paper before, and you can call them, and that could be changed. Because I happen to know that I put in notifications on, they accept them up until Wednesday afternoon. And I think it would be really helpful that as a commission, you understood, and I'm not sure that any legislative sessions should be at 10 o'clock in the morning, because it really impairs the ability of the public to participate.
I'm going to disagree with you with that, because I've been here a long time. We've discussed, should we have meetings at nighttime? Should we have meetings in the daytime? And we've done it both ways over many years. And the one thing that I do know, if people got something on their mind, they'll be here.
Well,
they have to make, because, look, I understand what you're saying, but how do we know there's not people out there that would really like to be here in the mornings, that it suits them better? I think in this case, we've set the date, and we'll just have to see what happens. But they can write letters. I mean, they got from now till, and they're read into the record. They can be on the internet.
Well, it's clear you're not going to change your mind, but I think it disadvantages a lot of people, and certainly not people like me. I'm retired. I can come to a 10 o'clock meeting. I can come to a 6 o'clock meeting. But for many of the people that are concerned about this, they're young families, the people that you want to be actively participating in this government, who work. They don't, they're not, they already had to take time off, for planning commission meetings that happen at 1:30 in the afternoon, which is also work time. So
I guess that was one of the things I was going to point out too, is that I sat through both of those hearings in front of the planning commission, and they made it there. Now,
right.
It
so
was
now,
a little later, 1:30, but
yeah. So now you're going to make them
we're
come
going to try to run a good hearing and take everybody. And believe me, if somebody wants to write a letter or come in, they're going to be given. Those letters are going to mean just as much as if they were here in person.
Okay.
That
Thank you.
I promise you. Anybody else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.